Hello and welcome to the Assertiveness Workshop. This is coming from Back on Track Psychological Services based in Hammersmith and Fulham. The presentation today is going to discuss what assertiveness is and what it isn't, and how we can develop a more assertive behaviour in our own life. So it could be helpful for you to have a notebook handy, as it might be that you want to jot down some ideas and thoughts as we go along, but you can pause the presentation at any time. So with no further ado, let's get started. So just in a little bit more detail then, the aims of our presentation today are to really help you understand what assertiveness is and why it's important for us to develop assertiveness. Because quite often we can see that a lack of assertiveness can be linked with other difficulties such as low self-esteem or low mood. We'll also be identifying where assertiveness sits between aggression and passivity, and we'll consider why some people maybe find being assertive a bit difficult. And we'll also go through techniques to facilitate you developing a greater assertive behaviour in your own life. So it's important to start to think about what assertiveness means to you. Because maybe you've heard people say that you need to be more assertive, but what exactly do they mean? What exactly is assertiveness? So essentially, assertiveness is a communication style. Assertiveness is based on the idea that your needs, wants and feelings are no more or no less important than those of others. It's about being able to express your feelings, thoughts, beliefs and opinions in an open manner that importantly doesn't violate the rights of others. And assertiveness is a tool. It isn't something we are or we're not, it's a skill. It's something we can build on, develop and improve with practice and perseverance. There are a number of common myths or misconceptions about assertiveness that some people use to support why they shouldn't try to be more assertive. So it's important to have a look at what assertiveness is not. Being assertive is not being rude, being bossy or being aggressive. Being assertive is not getting what you want at the expense of others. In fact, being assertive does not mean you'll always get what you want at all, but it can often result in compromise. Being assertive is not something you have to do all the time. It doesn't mean that you have to be assertive all the time in every situation, but understanding how to be assertive does provide you with a choice of when or when not to use it. So if assertiveness is a communication style, other communication styles you may have heard of or be aware of include being aggressive and being passive. And these different communication styles can be identified by three differing beliefs. So the aggressive style holds that I'm okay and you're not. It's a style that violates the rights of others. Being passive holds that you're okay, I'm not okay. And this is where we might violate our own rights by prioritising the needs of others. And then there's assertiveness that holds that I'm okay, you're okay. It's about expressing ourselves in a way that respects both our needs and the needs of others. Think of the I'm okay, you're okay assertiveness style as the halfway point between aggressive and passive communication, just the right balance. And there are many benefits to being assertive. For example, communicating in an assertive manner can help you to minimize conflict, control anger, to have your needs better met, and to have more positive relationships with friends, family, and others. Consider this scenario. When you're waiting in line and someone comes and cuts in front of you, a passive response might be to say nothing, just to let it go and stand there quietly, annoyed, brooding, spending the next hour or even the whole evening going over in your head what you wish you would have said. This kind of interaction can make us feel bad and wear down our confidence and self-esteem. An An aggressive response could be to grab them by the shoulder and complain loudly at their face. This might make you feel better in the short term, but you'll probably also spend the rest of the hour feeling annoyed about this interaction. Or perhaps the other person shouts back and the situation gets even worse. Not a great outcome. An assertive response could be to gently tap the person on the shoulder and say in a clear but respectful voice, "Excuse me, there's actually a line here. It'll be better if you could wait your turn like the rest of us." Chances are you'll get a more positive response to this. Perhaps the other person will apologise and move to the back of the line, or they may explain their reasons for wanting to push in and you may feel happy to do them a favour. They may still respond badly. Your assertiveness does not guarantee others will not be aggressive, but at least you will feel good, knowing that you stood up for your rights and did your best using assertive communication. Before we go on to look at aggressive and passive styles in more detail, let's just take a moment here to consider the negative impact of lacking assertiveness, that is, being either more passive or aggressive in style. That it can often be linked with low self-esteem and other difficulties. We can imagine how if we communicate in a passive manner, we're not saying what we really think or feel. This means we can end up agreeing with and fulfilling other people's needs or wants rather than our own. This can result in a lack of purpose and a feeling of not being in control of our own lives. If we never express ourselves openly and conceal our thoughts and feelings, this can make us feel tense, stressed, anxious, or resentful. It can also lead to unhealthy and uncomfortable relationships where we feel like the people closest to us don't really know us. If we constantly communicate in an aggressive manner, for example, we can eventually lose friends, isolate ourselves, and people can lose respect for us. Again, this can lead to low self-esteem. There is a large amount of research suggesting people who are more assertive tend to be less depressed and have better health outcomes. So some good reasons to think about incorporating assertive behaviour into our lives. But let's continue to explore the 3 different styles in a bit more detail now. You can pause the slide here if it's helpful and jot some ideas down on a pad. But I'd like you to ask yourself, what does being aggressive mean to you? What kind of body language goes along with being aggressive? How might someone communicate aggressively? How would they talk and what would they do? And if you've taken a moment to think about that, I'd like you to go ahead and think about being passive. And what does being passive mean to you? Again, what body language goes along with being passive? And how might someone communicate in a passive way? How would they talk and what would they do? And of course, if you've thought about those things, then go ahead now and think about the assertive style. What does that mean to you? What kind of body language goes along with being assertive? How might someone communicate in an assertive way? How would they talk and what would they do? So let's explore the verbal and non-verbal characteristics of these styles in a little bit more detail. So firstly, the aggressive style. Now remember, these are used by people who stand up for their personal rights in a way which usually is inappropriate and violates the rights of other people. So verbal and non-verbal characteristics can include interrupting, talking over people, speaking loudly, often in a sarcastic, cold or harsh tone. It can involve intimidating others with expressions such as crossing their arms or clenching their jaw. It's about invading other people's space and controlling groups. Passive styles are used by those who don't express their honest feelings and thoughts and beliefs and therefore allow others to violate their rights. It can also mean expressing thoughts and feelings in an apologetic, self-effacing way so that others can easily disregard them. So verbal and non-verbal characteristics can include being afraid to speak up, speaking very softly so others can't hear, avoiding eye contact, showing little or no expression. Their body language can be slouched, withdrawn, and they can easily isolate themselves from groups. And that leads us on to the assertive style. And remember, assertive communication is about communicating our feelings, thoughts and beliefs in an open, honest manner, which doesn't violate the rights of others. So verbal and non-verbal characteristics can be that we speak openly, that we use conversational tones, make good eye contact, show expressions which actually match the message we're making. We can be relaxed and adopt an open posture, and it's about participating and being part of a group. So let's try an exercise now. The next 3 slides lays out the same scenario, but from 3 different perspectives. It highlights the different thoughts, feelings, physical sensations and behaviours of someone who is behaving in one of the different styles. Take a look, pause the slides and decide for yourself, are these examples of aggressive, passive or assertive styles? And then ask yourself, which have the most helpful response, do you think? And which one led to the most effective outcome? The chances are by now you're beginning to appreciate the benefits of acting assertively, but maybe you're still experiencing difficulty being assertive in your own life. So let's think about what makes it difficult for people. And in fact, there are a number of factors that can stop us from acting assertively. Self-defeating beliefs, for example. We might have unrealistic beliefs about being assertive, our ability to be assertive, or the things that might happen if we are assertive. And this is often a major cause of acting non-assertively. For example, we might believe that our needs are less important than everyone else's, or that people won't like me if I say no. We might feel it's uncaring or rude or selfish to say what we want. Or we might feel that if we assert ourselves, it will upset other people and ruin relationships. I wonder if you can think of any beliefs you might hold which are getting in the way of acting in an assertive manner. Anxiety and stress. So it may be that we know how to be assertive, but we just get so anxious that we can't carry out that behaviour. Or maybe we feel so stressed that it becomes difficult to think and act clearly. If this is the case for you, then it's good to remember that we can learn ways to manage our anxiety and reduce our stress so they no longer become a barrier to us acting assertively. Or it could come down to just not knowing how to be assertive. It may be that we just don't have the verbal and non-verbal skills to be assertive. We may watch other people being assertive and admire their behaviour, but not have any real idea about how to act like that ourselves. Well, we'll go through some useful techniques. There can also be cultural and generational influences on our behaviour. For example, a gesture or tone of voice could seem aggressive in one culture, but be very normal in another. Our age and gender could also affect our views on assertiveness. For example, there was a time that men were taught that it was weak to express their emotions, and women were taught that it was aggressive to state their needs and opinions. And we need to consider how assertiveness is not as valued in some societies or cultures as much as it is in Western society. And if you're from one of these cultures, it's important to weigh up the pros and cons about being assertive. You may find that the pros of living within your cultural values outweigh the pros of being assertive. But it's also worth remembering that lifelong beliefs, although they can be difficult to change, they can change. We mentioned on the previous slide that one barrier to being assertive is when we hold unhelpful beliefs about assertiveness. These might be beliefs that are unrealistic and negative, which makes us less likely to be assertive. One helpful strategy is to replace these thoughts with new and helpful beliefs about assertiveness, which will motivate you to become more assertive. You can create your own, but below are 4 examples of helpful beliefs. Being assertive helps me communicate what is important. Being assertive helps reduce stress. Being assertive helps me feel more confident. Being assertive helps me feel respected by others. Over the next few slides, we'll introduce some general assertiveness techniques. These techniques can be used across a wide range of situations. When you practice these techniques, it can be useful to begin using them in a neutral situation. By this, we mean one where your emotions aren't too strong. Then, as you become more skilled, you can begin using them in more difficult or emotional situations. Remember, as with any new skill you learn, the first time you try these techniques, they may not go the way you planned. It is important that you don't beat yourself up about this, but look at what went wrong and how you might do it differently next time, and then have another go. Over time, you'll find that it gets easier. With each of the techniques, it is also important to remember the non-verbal communication. You may think that you're being assertive because you're using a particular assertive technique. However, it's possible to use all of these in an aggressive or a passive way if you're not careful. And to make sure you're using assertive non-verbal communication, keep your voice calm, the volume normal, the pace even, keep good eye contact, and try to keep your physical tension low. We're going to go over each of the techniques in more detail over the next few slides. The broken record. This is a good skill you can apply to most situations. It involves preparing what you're going to say and repeating it exactly as often as necessary in a calm, relaxed manner. It helps to keep you relaxed because you know what you're going to say. You're able to avoid irrelevant logic, and it's a particularly good technique for saying no. For example, someone, a colleague, a friend, a family member, makes an unreasonable request on your time and you need to say no, but they just keep on trying. You can say, "Sorry, I can't do that this afternoon." Oh please, I really need your help." "I see, but I can't do that this afternoon." "But it won't take long at all." "I'm sorry, I can't do that this afternoon." It's a good skill to use when you're dealing with clever, articulate people, because all you need to do is stick to your prepared lines. You might feel self-conscious saying the same thing over and over again, but often the other person doesn't even notice. Saying no. Many people have great difficulty saying no. Even people who are quite assertive in other situations may find themselves saying yes to things that they really don't want to. Now, saying yes to something you don't really want to do can be appropriate in some situations, but when you need to say no in an assertive manner, here are some useful considerations. It can be helpful to show that you appreciate being asked. It's also helpful to acknowledge the other person's needs and priorities, and to give a clear reason for saying no. Unfortunately, I don't have the time because of a work deadline. It can also be helpful when saying no to help that person find alternative solutions. So this can help that person on a practical level, but also reflects that you do want to help, whilst avoiding taking on their problem as if it were your own. And it can also be helpful to give yourself time to think. So few decisions really need to be made on the spot, and time can help you to stand back and work out exactly what you want to do and how you're going to express this. When communicating with partners, spouses, children and friends, it's so easy to get things wrong. Misunderstandings are common, and we can react passively or aggressively to what we think they mean. They react likewise to what they think we mean, and so it goes on. We can learn to be more assertive and effective in communicating what we really want to say, without upsetting the other person and reducing misunderstandings on both sides. The 3-part assertive message is a simple tool to talk to someone about an issue you may have. As the name suggests, this skill involves 3 parts. The first part is to describe the undesired behaviour. It's important to be honest but tactful, and remember that the person's behaviour is separate from their character. The second part is to communicate honestly your feelings. So it's important to use I statements. This helps us express our needs and take responsibility for our feelings without making the other person feel defensive. Finally, we want to express clearly what we would like to happen instead. So here it's important to be specific and express what the benefits of the new solution will be also. A really simple example of using the 3-part assertive message, which involves facts, feelings and fair request, would be to describe the behaviour. When you leave a wet towel on the bathroom floor, describe your feelings. I feel annoyed because it creates extra work when they need washing, and what you would like to happen instead. I would really appreciate it if you would hang them up to dry on the radiator. It may seem deceptively simple, but this is a really important technique which actually takes a lot of practice, but it's well worth the effort you put in. Now it's time for you to have a go. Remember, assertive behaviour is a skill you can improve at, but it does take practice. Consider asking a friend to help you and be brave. Ask for some honest, constructive feedback. Or practice in front of the mirror and really look at your body language. Does it support the assertive message you're making? So now let's consider different scenarios where you might want to utilise these techniques. For example, work situations where assertive behaviour can be helpful include receiving a compliment or receiving legitimate or unfair criticism, which, let's face it, can be hard for anyone. But when we act assertively, we avoid reacting in a passive or aggressive way. Home situations that may require assertiveness could include being irritated by the habits of someone we love, Quite often we can try and avoid unnecessary conflict, but those problems can quickly build and be blown out of proportion. Also, being able to say no in a polite and confident manner to, say, relatives wanting to visit or other unnecessary or difficult requests. In public, assertive communication is useful when you need to complain or if you need to return faulty items in person. And with friends, some examples of assertive behaviour can be when you're feeling angry with the way that a friend has treated you, or if they're asking for favours and you want to say no. We mentioned in an earlier slide how anxiety and stress can be a barrier to assertive behaviour and actually lead us to act in a more passive or aggressive way. A calm voice and relaxed, open body language best supports assertive communication. With that in mind, relaxation techniques can help reduce physical and emotional tension before, during, or after a difficult situation. We want to share with you 2 techniques to practice as part of your assertiveness skill set, or to incorporate into your daily life or use when you know you would like to be acting assertively but feel a bit anxious to do so. Over the next 2 slides, we'll give you a brief introduction to progressive muscle relaxation and controlled breathing. Progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR, is an effective way of releasing the excess energy and tension we hold in our bodies to help us relax. It directly tackles the 2 ways that stress can affect the body, through relaxing the muscles and slowing down the autonomic nervous system. It involves working through our body head to toe or toe to head, clenching and releasing the various muscle groups to notice the contrast between tension and relaxation. It's very common when someone becomes anxious for changes to occur in their breathing. As the body begins to feel more tense, our heart rate can increase and our breathing may speed up. This overbreathing can in itself increase the feeling of tension. With controlled breathing, we learn to slow our breathing down. This can help to reduce some of the physical symptoms of stress and anxious feelings and help us in situations where we feel nervous to act assertively. The following short breathing exercise can help you to relax. Breathing in through your nostrils all the way to the bottom of your stomach will release tension felt throughout the body. Exhaling slowly will help your body to feel more relaxed. We're coming to the end of the presentation now, and so I'd like to highlight 2 important points about assertiveness one more time. The first is that building assertiveness skills does not mean you have to be assertive in every situation. In fact, there are situations where being assertive is not the most helpful way to be. For example, if you're in a bar and someone begins to be verbally aggressive or violent, then being assertive may place you at risk. In this case, you may make the decision that a passive approach is most beneficial. When it comes down to it, learning to be assertive is about providing yourself with a choice, so you are in control of your communication style at all times. Secondly, that behaving assertively does not mean that you'll always get what you want. In fact, being assertive is no guarantee of any outcome at all. Being assertive is about expressing yourself in a way that respects your needs and the needs of others. It's about being clear and open. Sometimes this means you will get what you want. Sometimes it doesn't. Most often, you'll find you'll come to a compromise. In summary, here are some questions to ask yourself about the presentation to get you thinking and to help consolidate what you've learnt. You may want to pause the slides, get the pen and paper and jot down some notes. You can go back and listen to any part of the presentation again to help you with this. This has been a brief introduction to assertiveness. We hope you found it helpful and can begin to incorporate some of the techniques you've learnt. If you would like to access further support from Back on Track, we'd like to hear from you. To find out more about the wide range of therapy we offer, or to self-refer, you can visit our website, or you can call us directly.